podcast, where we have raw conversation about staying motivated and ambitious while facing real life challenges. Success doesn't just happen, you have to work hard, fall, and keep getting up regardless of the obstacles. If settling or giving up is not your style, stick around for this real ass conversation. My name is Priscilla, and I've always enjoyed helping and motivating others. While developing my own brand, I realized my passion for marketing and empowering others to keep pushing forward and manifesting their dreams. Thanks for tuning in. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Ambitious AF podcast. Today I have a wonderful special guest who I met on Instagram, almost like I meet everyone actually. Her name is Diana Guintu. She is an empowerment coach. And Diana, I'm going to open it up to you. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me here, first of all.
Of course.
Yes, how do you meet people other than Instagram nowadays?
I know, right?
But thanks for having me here. I am an empowerment coach. I've been working with women for over 2 decades now. My background is as a licensed professional counselor, and I've been doing coaching for about 10 years now.
Wow. And so you said an empowerment coach and you work with women.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what that means.
Yeah. So basically, I work with women usually I have 2 ways to work with me. One of them is my group program and then one-on-one coaching. And usually I work with women that are interested in sort of stepping into this new version of themselves, right? I think as moms, and I know you probably can relate to this, there's a time where we sort of turn in what I call my I matter card. Right. And it's everything about the kids. Right. And we go through that season where, I don't know about you, but I grew up seeing my mom sacrifice herself for everybody else. And so
Absolutely.
I sort of, grew up with that role model. Right. And I think a lot of women in my generation sort of have that and have turned in their I matter card and find themselves sort of in a season of really wanting more for themselves. But they've sort of lost the way of how to do it. And so that's when they come to me so that we can work on sort of healing their past, rediscovering their passions, and then stepping into this better version and more empowered version of themselves.
That is really helpful. And honestly, that is actually what drew me to you, is that you share a lot of things that women, we do tend to forget about ourselves because we give so much to our family. And so it was really cool to see you on Instagram doing your thing. You're super entertaining. I love your reels. There's always certain people that you just click with. And I was like, I need to meet her. And so finally we did it.
Yes, I'm obsessed with reels. I love reels. I don't know a little about me. I was in theater growing up, so I love to sort of put on a little bit of that acting hat on. Okay. And so, yeah, it's definitely been a good addition to Instagram.
That's pretty cool. And so, Diana, you said that you started off as a counselor. So yes. Obviously, one thing kind of led to another at some point. We'll get into the counselor first, but how did counselor lead to coaching?
Oh, that's a very interesting story, but I'll give you guys sort of the highlights. I was a counselor for about 10 years and found myself really stuck in that profession. In all transparency, my business, I had a private practice, and it was not good. it was not good. It wasn't profitable. And I was literally sort of just in a horrible place mentally, emotionally for me. That was, if we look at 10 years, my kids were very young. My little girl was about a toddler. And so there was a lot of personal stuff going on, but also professionally, I just couldn't get it together professionally. Wow. I had sort of reached a plateau, and financially, it just was not a good decision to continue. And it was one of those times, and I know you probably, maybe your listeners also have been in a place where you sort of are in a transition and you're sort of shoved into it. It's not willingly. And that literally is how I ended up in coaching, is that I ended up having to sort of put counseling hat on hold and move into a corporate job as a coach.
Oh, okay. So, and was it along the same lines as what you're doing now?
Yeah, so it was health coaching. It was working with like the behavioral side of people with chronic conditions. So definitely a little bit outside of what I was doing because counseling is very, it was very process based, very trauma based, and then moving into more of a goal oriented sort of dynamic, right? Like future
Okay.
oriented, fast paced. So yeah, I was sort of pushed into this not knowing that this is where I was going to end up, which
Right.
now I think everything works out perfectly in the end.
Right.
But back then, if we look at 10 years, I was in a really, really bad place, both professionally and personally. And sort of that's how I kind of closed that chapter and moved into the coaching space.
Okay. And I'm actually glad that you're making that contrast, because I literally just a few hours ago had this conversation with my ex. He's the father of my 17-year-old son, and my son has depression, and he has like just a lot of things, ADHD, like a lot of things that he deals with, and he goes through his ups and downs. But I've come to the point where I said, okay, we've been working with counselors, different kinds of counselors for the last, I don't know, 7 years. And then I finally was like, you know what? Fuck this shit. He needs a coach. He needs someone to hold him accountable and to help him, because just like you would get a personal trainer who holds you accountable, teaches you everything you need to know, that is where I'm at now. So obviously for him, I reached out to a man because I think, a boy relates to a man who's been through something similar. But in your case, so you said health. How did you transition into this empowerment coach, and what is that process like?
Yeah, so here's the thing. As I sort of went on to this discovery journey for myself, right, where I started to realize 10 years ago, I looked at my life during this transition and I didn't like who I was. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't recognize myself anymore. It was like, I think, for many of us, right, we've had a moment where we stare in the mirror and we're like, who are you? Who are you? Like, yeah, and for me, it happened after kids, but for some people, it happens after a marriage, after a career, like somewhere along the lines, we lose ourselves, right? And that's where I was 10 years ago. I was sort of lost. And what I realized is that I really wanted a different identity. It's like, I was like, I want to be a different person, maybe a little bit of who I was prior to kids, but also just like, what does it look like to be an empowered mom? Like, what does my career look like? My person look like, right? I had neglected at that time my health. I was very, very, sort of high risk on a lot of chronic conditions. And I realized like, I need to start to really put myself first. Like, what does that mean? Right. And as I went into this journey, I healed a little bit of my trauma, which was also, again, going back to sort of what holds us back, right? There's stories in our heads, in our past that hold us back. And once I sort of started doing some healing work, I was able to sort of rediscover some of those passion pieces that I had sort of neglected, right? And then as I found myself and sort of felt more empowered to step into who I wanted to be, what I realized is that when I was having conversations with other women, they were back there where I was, And so I started to think, how can I help women feel more empowered? Like, I want to help them know that there is actually a sweet spot being a mom and an entrepreneur. Like, there is a sweet spot. Now, is it a perfect spot? No. No, there is not a perfect spot, but there is a sweet spot. There's a sweet spot of where you can go back to yourself a little bit and still be successful. Okay. And so I just started sort of going on Facebook, and this was not the business idea. I did not start off wanting to be in business. I was working, corporate world. So this is not like the goal. The goal was just to empower other women to start to show up for themselves. And so I started to go live on Facebook and give little tips here and there. And
Oh my God. That's how you
oh,
started?
that's how
That's
it started.
awesome.
If you go back far enough on my Facebook, you will see very hard to watch videos on my account. You know, we all have a beginning. But you'll see some videos where I started, and I used to just do literally like 2 to 3 minute little tips for working moms.
Wow.
And then suddenly this is when I started, when I realized that I was onto something. There was a moment that I took some time off from going live.
Okay.
Just life got busy, not intentionally, but you know, I just sort of didn't go live for a couple weeks, and I started getting messages from women saying, "Hey,
Where are you at?
where are your tips?" And I was like, "Are people paying attention? Like, who are these people like that are paying attention?" And so anyway, that's kind of how it started, where I started to realize that there was a need for women to have someone that has walked the walk before, and to show
Right.
them a little bit of that strategy.
Wow. You know what? That's like super, that's so, I don't even know how to describe it because it's like, it's a really cool story because it's like you said, you didn't plan that. It just happened. And it's like, once we start figuring out who we are, I think that's so important. It's like, what do you want? And that's like one of the hardest freaking questions that we stumble upon. And then once we figure it out, then you start building from that point. So I think that's really special that you're pointing out that you just started going in that direction, and it all started with your own self-discovery of what you wanted to be happy, to be more probably productive, to be healthier, like all these different things. And so I think that's like super important. And I think now perhaps more than ever, especially after everything that happened with the lockdown, I don't want to say the word but I think it gave us this opportunity to really look within ourselves and figure out, like, what do I need? Maybe we're sad about things. Maybe we were like tired of, I don't know, we always wanted to be somewhere. We couldn't be alone with our thoughts, like things like that, and so it's important that we address it, but we also need to figure out how to find the right help or take the right steps to get there. And for many people, we all need help with something at some point. So if it's something where you're struggling and you just can't figure it out, and you're going on and you're feeling sad, or you keep getting back to that same point, I would say, like, working with someone like you, that's where it's so beneficial, where you've been there, you've done that. Here, skip through all the bullshit.
Yes.
And end up where you want to be without taking forever.
Right. Yeah.
No, I think that's really awesome. And so as far as this journey that you've been through, because it's been a journey, I do want to address that you wrote a book.
Yes.
What is the title of that book?
The book is called Breaking Free. It's right
Tell
here.
us a little. Oh, yes, please show it. Yes, show it. Again, I forgot to say, this one's on YouTube, guys. Breaking Free.
Breaking Free.
I'm gonna buy it. I'm actually gonna buy it, but I haven't had a chance to yet. Sorry.
No, that's good.
But I am gonna buy it. But yeah, tell us about that.
So, I think, well, one, the Breaking Free is because I feel like a lot of us have some type of past, some type of trauma
Absolutely.
that we carry with us, right? Like for me, it's sexual abuse, but for somebody else could be a divorce. It could be being overweight all their life. It could be poverty. It could be, you name it, right?
Right.
We all can name our own trauma, right? And
right.
So I found, I was a counselor, so I had done a lot of therapy, a lot of work on myself. So it was not that I hadn't addressed my issues, but 10 years ago, when I was in the thick of being lost, trauma has a way of peeping its head back up. Wow. And saying, like, hello, I'm still here. And I realized that I hadn't really sort of let go of some of the things, some of that baggage that was still there. And part of it was that it was that self-sacrifice, right? Like, don't complain, don't say anything, just work hard, put your head down, like, keep going. And I had to kind of make peace with it. And so as I was able to sort of fully let go of that trauma and really get to a place of really, I'm in a really good place with my trauma right now. I was able to break sort of free from the chains, you know, and suddenly things became possible. Things became attainable, right? And it's because I really feel that, for example, if somebody's hearing this and they keep starting, right? Because we can all start, we can all be in the starting lane, right?
Yeah.
And if you're always starting and you find yourself year after year just starting, I want to say, like, it is time to break free from the chains of the trauma, right? The stories of your past. And that is something that I work with my clients a lot on, that process of healing some of their past, moving into let go and forgiveness, and then reaching into like this self-identity of like, how are you going to show up now?
Yeah. Yeah. There was a post, or no, several posts, because obviously you already know your content pillars. I know, you know. So if for those of you who don't know what a content pillar is, it means that there's a certain topics that you're going to talk about, and you're going to repeat them every so often of a day or the week or whatever. And so Diana has, it's so funny. So she had posted something that said something along the lines of, do you feel like kind of like a badass when you don't have to ask anyone for help and you're busting your own ass getting shit done? Like, that's just the gist of it. I don't remember exactly what it said, but that was the gist of it. And it's so funny because my best friend's name is Diana. I always mention her because she's like my business bestie. We talk about business all the time and growing, and, you know, not just like business, but also growing, like personally growing, because I don't know if you work with a lot of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
You do,
yeah.
right? Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I figured, because you were talking about that.
Yeah.
And so as a mom and as an entrepreneur, like sometimes like we just feel like we could do it all, right? And that we have to do it all. And we just push. And like, by all means, this is a differentiation that I want to make with this, because I keep talking about it, is that you can push, because when you're building a business, you do have to push. You have to get shit done that you don't want to do. You have to stay up late sometimes because you're building. But then there comes a point where once you're able to outsource or ask someone for help or whatever it is, then you really need to stop ignoring that. Don't act like you're this badass that could do everything forever, because that's so not healthy. And so that was one of the posts that I was like, oh my God, that's so funny. I know people like this sometimes, you know?
Yeah. You know, and I think you're referring to, like, there's so much self-worth in being like the strong woman, like woman, and we're so proud of it. And we get so much, like, we feel like a badass, right? We feel like, we're doing all these things. And I think you're right. I think there's a difference between getting your work done, right? Getting shit done. You have to move into action. You can't just dream up your dream life. Like, you have to go for it. But I think that it's really toxic to believe that you have to sacrifice yourself to get it.
And that's the point I want you to make.
That's the point right there, is that there doesn't need to be a self-sacrifice for it. You know, that for me, one of the things that I tell my clients when we start working is that most of the time when I start working with someone, women are sort of aware, you know, if you're investing in my programs, you've done some work, some personal development. I mean, you know, you kind of are not new to this coaching framework, but usually they come and they're what I call somewhere on the list, right? We have a to-do list, right? And so your name's on the list, okay? It's not completely off, it's on the list, but most of the time it's at the end of the list. So it's like, I will take care of myself, or I will after blah 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 blah, right? Like, we have this huge list. And what happens, I know a lot of women are going to relate to this, is that we continue to move our name down as things come up with a family, as things come up with the boss, as things come up with things, right? Like we just continue to push ourselves down. And the reality is if you're overwhelmed, if you're frustrated, if you are just, again, always starting, then the problem is not that you don't know what to do. It's that you have no idea what it means to move yourself to the top. The top of
like, wait, say that again?
Right? Because it's not that you don't know what to do, right? It's not that you don't know what to do, but you don't know how to get yourself from the bottom of the list to the top of the list. And that is what I help women do.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. And honestly, that was the post, because there have been times, like, by all means, like there's plenty of times where I'm blessed. There's plenty of times when I'm blessed. But as time has progressed, and I have worked a lot on my own mindset and on manifesting and just healing as well, because if my listeners are the regular listeners, you guys have heard a past episode where I talked about I was also abused by my father. He was an alcoholic. My mom always put herself last. He would fight with her. Like, there was just a lot of trauma in my life. And then my marriage was shitty. The first one. The one right now is normal. You know, you hate each other, but you love each other. I'm kidding. We love each other more than anything. But it's so I've been through like a lot of process, and then I've been through the process of building a business for the last 5 years, and that business has changed completely from when I first started. But now I'm at the point where, actually, no, let me go back a little bit. I've always known that I'm not going to work my fucking ass off and never see any pleasure out of it. So that is the one quality that always kept me from what you're saying, is that overdoing it or burning out or whatever, is because I'm like, no, if my back hurts, I'm going to go get a fucking massage. I'm going to stop what I'm doing and I'm going to go get a massage, because if I don't feel good, how am I going to continue to function? You know?
Such a simple knowledge, right? Of like, if you need something, provided for yourself.
Right.
But I'm telling you, it does not come easy for a lot of women. I mean, I know for me, I thought it came easy until I had kids. Like, if you're looking at my single self, I was doing all the good things. I was following my dreams. I was like, getting in touch with like my deeper desires and my goals and all stuff. Then I had kids, and suddenly it was like, boom, like I literally put everything on hold. So again, I think that it's not about the knowing, because most of us know what we need. It's the how. The how is what is really keeping people in that starting lane. Because if you had a strategy, and I think you were mentioning this earlier, of like, wouldn't you want to skip 5 years if you could?
Fuck
trial. I mean, that's
trial
and
error.
That's why I hire my coach. I mean, I have a coach myself so that I can skip and collapse time. Right. Because that's what we're doing, is when you hire someone to guide you as a mentor, even with your son, is that you're really like they're going to give you the strategy so that you can skip the bullshit.
Exactly.
Like, these are the cliff notes. It's already been proven. The road has been built. So take the road with the paved road instead of the rocky road, So it's like, so anyway, I mean, I think that it's not about the knowledge. It's about, how do we get there? How do we, what's the strategy that's
how do you actually like make it happen?
Yeah.
Make
100%.
It happen. No, that's great. And, I hope for any of the listeners right now, or anyone who's watching the episode, like, obviously, if you're at that point where you're just like, okay, I can identify with some of these things, obviously Diana might not be your cup of tea. That's fine. There's plenty of other coaches. There's not one way for everyone, but I think that you should really consider looking into that as a possibility, because and I'm going to tell you this from my own experience in regards to my business. Now, not with me, because for whatever reason, yes, I went through all this shit, you know, but somehow I've always had that like survivor, like push through and we're gonna be okay. And in the long run, things could be worse, you know, whatever.
Right.
So I don't know how to teach people the way that you know how to teach people, because for me, it kind of almost comes naturally to like just make it happen, right? So I appreciate you because you are there to like, no, this is how you make it happen. For me, it's like, bitch, just go make it happen, you know?
Do it.
Just do it, exactly. And so it's like we don't always have the answers, and that's okay. We're not supposed to. We're not supposed to. And so like now at, you know, I'm again like toward my business, like I've always learned as much as I could on my own, but then there comes a point where I'm at like literally right now that I decided, I was like, fuck that. I'm going to pay for a coaching to help me with my business.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, the cool thing that I found out through the coaching is that I actually knew a lot of it and that I was actually doing okay. But now I'm getting all these different little strategies and little how-tos that I can incorporate to speed through and make shit happen even faster and get the results that I want even faster. And I'm telling all of you guys right now, this is for me with my business, but it's working. So if it wasn't, you know, if I had to address it in the other way where it's like my mental well-being, my healthy, you know, my health, things like that, I don't want to figure out 5 years down the road that I could have avoided diabetes had I done whatever, right?
Yeah. You know, I talk to people, like I have this one client that I was working with, that when she started working with me, scale from 1 to 10, 10 being, you know, high, 1 being low. She was having like a 10 with anxiety. She was just worried all the time and just had a lot of anxiety, especially around this time that we're, you know, going through right now, just like
yeah,
just the
stuff.
time in our lives, right? And she was having so much anxiety about so many things, and it was really stealing a lot of joy from her. And while working, I mean, together, she went from a 10 to a 2.
Wow.
And I mean, talk about the quality of life, the quality of life that you can have. She improved her health dramatically, like physically, working out, and she restored relationships. She let go of that fear. She was able to like go into her career and be a leader. I mean, so many things. So it's sort of like, I know that you're right. I might not be the cup of tea for everyone. You might not be either. You know, we all are, everybody has their own preference. But one of the things that I do want to say is that if I could go back and talk to myself 10 years from now, I mean,
I was going to ask you this. Okay, good.
One of the things that I would not wait as long to ask for help. I would not wait as long. I feel like as women, we just wait till we're at the breaking point.
We
like,
do. We
people
really
that
do.
come to me are not in the breaking point. Most people come because they're like, this is it. I'm done. Right? Like they say that to me, like, I am done living this way and therefore I need your help. But it's like they've endured so much pain.
Yeah.
So much pain. And I think that I wish, and I was the same, you know, and that's what I would tell myself then is don't wait so long. There's no shame in getting the Cliff Notes and getting the shortcut. Like, you don't have to endure so much pain just so that you can appear strong.
Right. I think that's great. And I really do hope that anyone who's listening to this, like this may apply to so many different things in your life, you know, like, why would you want to go through all that pain regardless of what it is? Like, and it's like, yes, you have to invest in yourself. And you have to look at it like that. It's an investment. When you invest in something, you get something in return. And the return could be your happiness, your health, like just so many things that will just change the quality of your life.
Yeah.
And I wish and I don't think my mom listens to the podcast, but I want to talk about that because I mean, I've mentioned her before, but I'm just like, she's the first person I thought of, I was like, I wish I could help my mom by like having her meet Diana and like just talking to her, because my mom's been through so much, so much. Pobrecita, like she's such a sweet, beautiful person. She did sacrifice herself so much for us growing up, and then at some point she lost it. She went out on her own and she like binged on whatever pleasure she could for a while, but ultimately she's still not happy because she hasn't healed.
Yeah.
And that's like, I think the biggest thing is like when it comes to our self-worth and our being and our health, it's like if you are suffering from something that caused you so much pain and you've never gotten past that somehow, like then you owe it to yourself even more to work with someone like you, like Diana, like you.
I think, I'm sorry, but I think.
No, I was gonna say, I appreciate what you do.
Yeah, I think it's so important to, like, sometimes we don't know the effect, and a lot of people might be saying, well, I don't have trauma. And maybe they don't have trauma in the way we're relating to like horrible situations, right? Like abuse and violence and all that stuff. But trauma is just an emotional reaction to something. Right. Okay. So it doesn't have to be like just detrimental, right? Like where some people are like, oh, they can't relate to that. But here's what I want to say. If you find yourself always sort of like not being able to break free from where the status quo, right? Then there might be some things that need to be addressed in the healing perspective, like some stories, whether that's mindset, family, I mean, there's so many things that you might not even be aware of.
Right. Yep.
But you're so frustrated because you continue to sort of be like in the same spot every year. Because I don't know if you can relate to this, but like how many of us start January with the same freaking goals again?
I don't, because as soon as I say I'm going to do something, like I jump on it. But
do you know how many people start that way?
I do. Yes.
I mean, every year you hear people with the same goals.
Right. I mean, at least 20 pounds this year, whatever. Like,
I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Right. And then like, research shows it's like the third week in January.
Third week of January. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a statistic with the gyms of the amount of times that people actually go, and then when they start dropping off. Yeah.
So, and that goes with anything. And so, if that is you, if that's something that you're like, man, I'm always with the same goal. I'm always saying that I'm going to, have better friends or make more money or whatever that is for you, right? Like your kryptonite. Then I want to just be bold here and say, there is something in your past that you need to let go of.
Right.
You don't know what it is.
And it's subliminal a lot of times. It's subliminal. It could have been that you heard maybe someone say they were always broke. Who knows? Like it's anything. And that's, I'm glad you brought that up, because you're right. It doesn't have to be necessarily this huge thing that's like devastating. Like you said, there's so many things that we don't even realize it affected us. And until we like narrow in and sit down and break it down, like then you won't know what it is in order to get rid of it.
Yeah.
100%. So that's what you do. That's what you help people do.
Yeah. That's what I help people.
I'm glad we got to that, because I think sometimes, some people are like, they're kind of curious, but they don't quite understand it. And so I think this is really helpful because, obviously there's a lot of people that offer this kind of work, and you're going to relate to who you relate to. So whoever it is that you're reaching out to, of course, I hope you reach out to Diana. But you can be from a different part of the world. Who knows? Just you gotta find someone who's gonna help you do this. And what do you recommend as far as like if someone is on this journey or in a search, or they've hit that rock bottom kind of place where it's like, I'm exhausted of this, whatever, like what do you recommend? How should they look into this?
into coaching per se.
Yeah.
I think we live in the social media world, right? Like,
Right.
I think start following people. Obviously you guys can go follow me. I know that, Priscilla's going to give my information, but start to sort of resonate with people, because you will know, just like me and you kind of resonated, we like each other's posts, and then we started to follow each other. I think it's important to really be cautious about your coaches. Especially right now, there's so many coaches out there, so many options. One of the things that I like to tell people that sort of separates me from a lot of other coaches is that I do have 20 years of clinical experience. So I don't just have, it's not something recent for me. I have been working with women for 2 decades. So I have a lot of educational and clinical experience that helps me, to address trauma, to address, healing and stuff, because you just want to ask the right questions. But the most important part is resonate with the person. Does the person's content, most coaches offer a consult. I know I do. I'll jump in for 15, 20 minutes to talk to somebody if they're curious about what it means to work with me. But, don't be afraid to ask. That's the main thing that I want people to take away from here, is that whether it's coaching or counseling or a support group or whatever, my biggest passion is helping women know that they don't have to endure the pain. They don't have to endure and stay in silence and sacrifice. There's another way to do it that's going to be more joyful and more peaceful.
That's so amazing. I'm so glad that you're doing this work. And I thank you for finding your place to help others, because I think ultimately, we should all help someone somehow. And you're doing this on a big scale. So I think that's amazing. Diana, how do you stay motivated?
Oh, I wish I could say, it's just I'm born with it. But I'm not.
My crazy ass, I don't know, I'm just motivated.
To be honest, how do I stay motivated? I always say to people, one of the things that my clients say, I just want to be motivated. Motivated is a very loaded word, right? We all think we have to have this feeling. But the way I look at motivation is that motivation is the result of my action.
Ooh, I like that.
So motivation is not before the action.
Okay.
Right? What motivates me is that I take action and I feel really good.
Yeah.
Right?
So, I haven't heard that before. I like that.
Yeah. So it's not something that I really promote, let's work on your motivation, because really let's work on your strategy that you're implementing. And then by the nature of taking action, you will feel motivated.
Wow.
Right.
And then you see results, and then that motivates you more.
Yeah. But if you're just sitting there waiting, please, motivation come, it's not going to come. Now, here's the thing. I do want to say there are moments that you can be inspired, right?
True.
You feel really inspired, and you're for example, January 2nd, there's going to be a lot of inspired people going to the gym.
Right.
Right. But on February 1st, the people that are still going to the gym are the people that are taking action and will get motivated later after a result of their action.
Wow.
So yeah, that's how I do it. Is I always think in those moments where I don't feel like doing, I lean on my routines, I lean on my habits. And I know that when I lean on these things, I have a morning routine. I call it my 3 M's. I move my body, I do a morning journal, and I meditate. And I know that when I lean on that, I'm going to feel motivated for my day.
That's awesome. And you actually do post this in your content about how you work through your days so that you continue to do what you got to do. And because obviously we all have those moments where fuck, I just don't feel like it today. I'm fucking tired. That was me this morning. I was I'm so fucking tired. I don't want to record the podcast. Baby didn't let me sleep all fucking night. But I do it because it was scheduled, and I'm not going to be flaky, and it's important for me, it's important for you, and then we get to move on. And now I'm like so happy that we did it.
Yeah. Again, you took
Yeah.
action,
Yeah.
and now the motivation to do it again, right?
Yeah.
With the next one is there because
Yeah.
you took action. So, so yeah, I like to really educate my clients about the goal is never to have motivation, because that's flawed in mine, case. Not everybody has that personality of like waking
Right.
up and like life is great, and then you're just it's actually a skill that people learn. We learn. And notice that the people that you're seeing like be super like motivated and doing things, look at their record of success and results. It's
Right. That's so true, Diana. I love that. I'm
so
like, these are like subliminal things that I don't know, because I'm just like, I don't even know how to explain it. I just do it because I know I have to do it. And I have a goal. Like, I have an end goal. And that end goal for me, that's what keeps me motivated, is like, fuck that bitch. Get your ass up, do what you got to do, because you have something that you're aiming for. And I don't know, like, I guess I could say, like, if you have that particular thing that you're looking for, then don't stop, even though you feel like it, because if you don't do it, you're not going to reach that goal, right?
exactly. Yeah. So it's really about having some strategies in place, right?
You're
Having
right. Yeah.
the routines, the strategy that's going to push you in those moments when you're not inspired, right? You just still show up, you
Right.
still do it. But if you don't have that anything to lean on, then you're going to really be sort of victim to that whole philosophy of like waiting to be motivated and being really frustrated that you lack something that other people have.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you point that out. Yeah, because that's like that. I find it hard because it's like, I don't do what you do, and I don't know how to teach people how I feel. I just know how I feel, and I do what I can to like try to encourage people, which is like a form of motivation, I guess, right? Like just come on, get up, do it. You don't feel like it, but like, come on, do it. And sometimes you just need that little push. Maybe you have to call a friend. I don't know, there's all these different things we could do. But along these lines, I always ask people, what does being ambitious mean to you? Because I see you pushing through and making things happen, and so I do see ambition within you. So what does that mean to you?
Ambition means to me is to step into courage, because I feel like the more that I step into courage, my ambition gets bigger and bigger, right? Because I'm moving away from fear. So it's sort of like, I wouldn't say that I have ever had like these really dreams of like being famous. Like I think a lot of people think of ambitious like big, but to me, I think of ambitious as fearless. Like, how can I move into my life with less fear, with less hesitation, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean just financially or professionally, but in my relationships, like how am I going to go bigger and better into deeper relationships, more joy, more happiness? And I try to like infuse that into my life so that I am living like, I don't know about you, but every year I pick a word for the year. And this year's word was courage. And so I've been doing a lot of courageous things in 2021, but I have my new word for 2022. And I think I'm going to announce it today in your podcast because it's so fitting to your podcast. My next word is big. Ooh. I'm going big in 2022. Nice. So how's that for ambitious?
That is ambitious, because it's like, for me, I just think you don't need to settle.
Yeah.
If you settle, then you're not moving forward. And it's like, we gotta keep moving forward. And like you said, it doesn't have to be big. I appreciate your definition of ambition, because everyone has a little bit of a different take on it. It means the same thing, obviously, in the long run, but like there's a way to take that on. And I really appreciate what you just said, because it's like you just, it doesn't have to be like this crazy goal, like you said, to be famous. Like, no, it's just what's the next thing for you? Because you shouldn't stay where you are. You got to keep growing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
This was so awesome, Diana. You gave us so much information, and I feel like, I feel like this is empowering, and this is motivational and inspirational, and it's like, whoever's listening to this, maybe you got ideas from it, whatever, or you need to find a coach, just reach out. But if somebody says, you know what, that woman was awesome, I want to meet her, where can they find you?
Yeah, they can find me on Instagram. I'm super, we talked about the reels. I love being on Instagram. That's where you'll catch me a lot. You can catch me at DianaG_speaks.
All right. And then you have a website.
And I am on my website, Diana Guintu, and that's Guintu, speaks.com. And then on Facebook, I'm just Diana Guintu. So.
And then your book, where can they find your book?
So you can get it on my website, DianaGuintuSpeaks.com, or you can get it on Amazon. We also do have the Kindle. So if you're one of those people that prefers like just downloading a Kindle book, there is an option for that.
Okay, that's good to know. And of course, as you guys know, I will put this in the show notes so you guys can just click and go to it. But other than that, I think this was awesome. I thank you so much for sharing everything and for doing the work that you do. I think it's amazing. And I love partnering with people like yourself, because I just want people to be in the best place they can possibly be for themselves. And ultimately, I think it creates a better world for everyone.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Priscilla, for having me and for having this platform. I really had fun here today. I'm sure we could go for hours. So,
oh my God.
So thank you so much for having us.
Yes, and thank you everyone for listening. We will see you next time, or talk to you next time.
For daily tips and motivation, follow me on Instagram at AmbitiousAF Copywriting.